Okay, so the slabs can be an end in of themselves. Hopefully you've made one and you are very happy with it, right? But they were also a tool for practicing, to take it to a next step. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to make a relief carved mug. And so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a blank, just sort of a mug like this. And it's very much like we made the candle holder. And that's one of the reasons why I chose that project. You know, one project builds upon the next. Anyways, so we're going to make the mug blank first, right? Just a blank mug, and then it's nice and thick so you can carve into it. But after we're done making this, we're going to just put it aside and we're going to do some drawing. So people often ask me, well, how much clay do you take? So let me show you. If I was starting this mug project off of a block of clay, maybe about this much. So how much is that? It's as much as my thumb, right? About that much. And that's quite a bit, and you'll have some extra, but that's okay. We can just recycle it. All right, so I'm going to take some off of the brick right here. Okay, and just like with my candle holder, I'm going to just roll it out like so. I've got my two sticks, right? And these are a 1/2 inch. And so that's perfect, just enough for carving in. The other thing is I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up, right? And for me, it's so nice to be able to stand up. And I don't know about for you, but in your other classes, you're probably sitting. And it wouldn't be such a bad break to get up for a few minutes. So I've got that. And I keep flipping it, and I keep using my body weight, which makes things a lot easier. Okay, so now that I've got it rolled out, I'm going to go ahead and trim the edges here a little bit. So I've got this one stick right along the edge here, and I could use either a butter knife or I could use one of the wooden tools. Either way, it doesn't matter. But if I do use the butter knife, remember, don't use the serrated edge because you'll score the tables, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep the tables nice. The other thing is that I've got a little bit of water right here, so I might use that just to lubricate the blade a little bit. Okay, so I've got that, holding it down. And with this, I'll just cut it through with one shot right here. Oftentimes I'll tell you to use more than one, but this is, I'm not worried about the edge on the end down below that you can't see pulling a little bit because there's going to be so much excess. So I've got that, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this parallel. Now I might measure. Here's an easy way to measure. So if I'm going to hold this knife right here, say like, okay, so here, let's say I'm going to have it like this, right? And then I can just come right on over here, and I can see like, okay, that is now parallel. See, I've got that here, here, it matches. That's how I can keep it parallel. I'll go ahead and just very lightly draw a little line right there. Then I can lay this right on top, like so, line it up with my line, and that's how I can get this straight and be the right width all the way down. Now, as far as how wide this is, you know, that's just sort of personal taste. The wider this is, obviously, the taller that your mug would be. There it is. Okay, so here, I better move this up a little bit so you can see it. There you go. And you can see the nice straight edge that I've got there. Alrighty. So then, just like the candle holder, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of paper and we're going to take one of these cylinders right here and we're just going to wrap it around the cylinder. Now I've got the extra long paper. It was nice enough that in the office they gave me a bunch of this stuff. And you know what? I actually like it better than the standard size because the standard size just fit perfectly around here. Whereas this one gives me a little bit of an overlap, and that way I don't have to worry about it too much. And remember, when you attach this paper, don't make it super tight. We want it to be able to slip in and out. This is the thing that just releases things. The other thing is, you might have learned this from the candle holder, is that you don't need much tape. That tiny little bit of tape is all I need, because all I want to do is just sort of tack that together, right? Don't put a big old thing of tape there. Do not attach the tape to the cylinder itself, otherwise you're going to be sad because it's not going to slide real easy like that. Okay, so I've got that, and so I can just do a bit of a measurement here as I take this by the end here and I roll it up and bring it into my camera view here, and right here, okay, so that's where it's rolled. So I'll just make a little line right here, and that's where I'll know to cut it. Unroll that. And cut that off. And here you'll see where I'm going a little bit one way, a little bit the other way, because I don't want to stretch that end as I'm cutting it. Right? Craftsmanship all the way through. Every step that you do should have craftsmanship to it. And that's how you end up with something that is craftsman-like in the end. Okay, so I've got that. Now this extra piece here, let's just put that aside. We're actually going to use this because I'm going to show you sort of a little shortcut for making the bottom of it. Okay, so we've got this. Okay, put it where you guys can see it. And I'm just going to take this. I've got my paper that's going all the way to the bottom here. Put this on. Roll that up. Those pieces should come together. Okay, I've got it a little bit big. So you know what? I'm going to just trim that just a little bit. Okay, let's see, is that any better? Yeah, that's perfect. You see how those two corners just meet each other, just like that? That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to score it. Okay, now this clay is really wet, so we don't want to be using a lot of water here. Just the tiniest bit, just to lubricate my tool. And you could score with a fork, you could score with the edge of the knife. I just kind of like a sharpened stick or a pencil. For me, it just works really well. And this end over here. Okay, so I've got that. Get everything lined up good. And put those together. Okay, that is just right. Taking those ends, and those ends are just coming together here nice and flat. Those two ends should come together flat, one against the other, just like that. If you can see it there, right there, just flat. Okay. Okay, Just a little wiggle and a push. You know how I do it to get these things connected well. Okay, that's good. And then my other trick is, of course, to go ahead and score across, right? And nice and deep too. Don't worry about messing it up. Heck, you're going to be carving this whole thing anyways, right? So I've really messed up that seam right there, right? So that it's not just a straight seam right through and any weaknesses. We've really gone deep into that. And that's okay because it's really easy to then just smooth it back out. See how easy that was? But that broke up that line. Okay, good enough. All right, so now back to this bottom part right here. What I'm going to do is normally I'd make a cup shape, and I debated whether or not to do the cup shape or bowl shape, and then you would attach it, but like we did with the candle holder. But I'm hoping that by this point you have built enough of a relationship with the clay that you can kind of figure a few things out. And one thing to figure out is that if you push this cardboard part, right, into the bottom of this, into this clay, it's going to make an impression. And it's going to be really hard to get down there and make that impression nice and smooth again. Okay, so since hopefully you know a little bit more about it now, you'll make sure that that cardboard is not sticking out and that you're not pushing in on that. And we can go ahead and we can just score this up real good here. Okay, score that up real good. And then we can just put it right onto this flat part here, right? Let's move it up a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so I've got it right onto there, right? And not pushing down on this at all. Don't do that, right? And a little wiggle, a little wiggle, a little wiggle and a push, and a wiggle and a push, and a wiggle and a push, right? And so that then should be securing this to this bottom slab. Pretty good, just by that. But don't push down on this, right? You'll be sorry if you do. Okay, so that's sucking down pretty good. But then, don't worry, we can do one better. What we'll do then is we'll trim around it, just like so. Now, instead of doing a circle around here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off straight pieces. Because if I do a circle, just go a circle right around it, then I'm going to have a tendency to undercut. Kind of like when we were carving, except that's not what we want to do here, right? I want to actually leave a little bit extra, if I can, around there. So not too tight, leaving a little bit of extra clay as I go around. Using the back of the knife, always the back of the knife. Okay. So you'll see it's not totally round. I've got these little bits of a corner around there. That's okay. And it's not totally flush. There's just a little bit of extra clay around here. That's okay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm just going to smooth this up into it. So here we go, if you can see it here. So up and up and up and up, just like so. And that's also going to really help to connect this bottom to the top here. Once again, don't push on this. Okay. Okay, I often say when I'm working with clay, little by little. So that might not have been perfectly round and perfectly smooth the first time. That's okay. I'll just come around again. Remember, avoid using water because this clay is already very, very wet, right? So I could lubricate my tool a little bit. Not a big deal, right? But instead, I'm just going to make sure that I keep it nice and clean all the time. And that's going to make it slide good enough. Okay, so smooth enough for now. Remember, we're just making the blank. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff to carve it and shape it and make it a little bit prettier as we go along. But the next thing we want to do, kind of right away, is we do want to connect the handle so that everything is the same amount of wet. There's the same amount of moisture when we're putting it all together, all these major parts. Okay, so this is nice and loose. Yep, right here. See? I might even pull it away slightly from the bottom, just because I really don't want it to be pushing down into that bottom. Okay, I've got a bunch of extra clay here, right? This is all the extra clay from when I rolled it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start recycling it right away, making it into a cohesive mass. So what you do, and I think I've shown this before, maybe not, but we wedge it, right? So first I'm just going to kind of clump it into a ball, right? But that's not near good enough. What I want to do then is I want to push down. And this is one of those things where I'd probably stand up and push in. And the clay should be nice and soft right now. This was brand new clay. So it should be nice and soft, or when we recycle clay in the classroom, we make it nice and soft again. So this shouldn't be too hard as long as you do it, kind of right away, right? So I'm pushing it in and I'm pushing down. Now I'm not going out, right? I'm just going down because I want to make this into a compact shape. I don't want to stretch it. And as I do this, if I get like a little face going on, just like this, see my little pit bull face or my little duck face right there, little monkey. I don't know what kind of face it is. But you see there's a little face right here. And each successive bit of the clay is just being pushed into taking it from the outside and pushing it in, and meanwhile pushing out any air bubbles and inconsistencies. Anyways, so we do that, and we do that a bunch of times. And the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. So I did that about 50 times, that process, and then in the end just kind of rolled it out. And so I've got a nice and consistent piece of clay here, ready to be used again. And so we're going to use it again for making the handle. I'm going to go ahead, and I am going to lubricate that a little bit, and I'm going to chop that in half. And that's still going to be a lot. Ooh, look at this. Look at that there. See, air bubbles. I thought with 50 that would be enough, but it wasn't enough. So am I going to stand for that? Oh no. I'm going to put this aside, and this one I'm going to continue to wedge just a little bit more. Okay, so let's see if that's a little bit better. In any case, I think I'm going to start making my handle now. Now, is that the right amount of clay? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure of this. We're still going to have extras, right? So I'm going to start just by squeezing it out a little bit. Start getting it into a longer, thinner sort of shape. Okay, so I'm going to start rolling this out as if it was just a big fat coil. So starting on my ends, I'm going to be rolling those ends in a little bit so it makes them nice and pointy. That way I don't end up with a big old tube here, so I've made those a little bit pointier. And then I'm going to roll it, making sure that it turns more than once, more than one full rotation as I do this. Okay, my hands are splayed out, just like I've shown you before. Right? And I can see already that that is at least twice as much clay as what I'm going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and make life easy on myself and get rid of half of it. Okay, so rolling this end up now so that it's a little bit more pointy like the other end, and just rolling it a little bit more, just like before. So important that you let it roll more than one time around, at least one full rotation, but probably a little bit more. That's how you don't get it to go flat, boom, 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 like that. Okay, so that's probably pretty good. I don't want too skinny of a handle on such a big mug. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this out a little bit. So just taking it, pushing with my finger a little bit here, maybe turning it over, doing the other side. Maybe even squaring off the other ends here a little bit. Making it nice and smooth. Easier to make your handle nice and smooth now than after it's attached. Although that being said, the handle itself could be a carved element. You might want to work on that. Who knows? Who knows? One thing that I would not recommend is doing a twist for a handle, kind of like we did the decorative piece on the candle holder, because those kind of things, or braids or whatnot, they do have a tendency to crack because of uneven drying and stuff like that. So I would have more of an inclination to make a handle one solid consistent piece than braided or twisted. But you know what? You give it a try. See how it works. Okay, so I've got this piece here, and I've got my mug right here. And so then I'm just going to fit the one to the other and see, like, okay, well, how much do I need? Okay, I was worried before that maybe I was getting rid of too much, but I'm going to have a lot of extra here. So as I fit that, just to see if I can make it such a way that you can see it here. Okay. And so maybe I just want my handle to be straight on like that, or maybe I want my handle to have more of a curve to it, like that, or reverse maybe, something more like this. That might be all right. Something, whatever, we'll see. But whatever kind of works for you. In fact, I think I'll go with something kind of like that. Square, like so. And I'm going to fit it, let's say, to here. And let's say to here. And I think I am going to have it curved a little bit like that, this one. Maybe curving in on itself a little bit. Alrighty, and so something maybe about like that. Okay. So now one of the things about the handles is that we really want to line it up. We want to line it up this direction here. We want to line it up from the side direction here as well. Okay. So I think what I'll do is put out, and also look where you had made the seam. If you can still find it, if you can't, then I guess you did a pretty good job. But avoid putting things on a seam. You never want seams on top of seams on top of seams. It makes for a weak connection. Okay, lining that up here. Something like that looks pretty straight, right? So maybe down here. I've got it scored in those two places. That's all good. This clay is nice and wet, so I don't need any water or anything like that. It'll just make it that much weaker. So I'm messing up that end right here. And I think I can give it a little wiggle and a push. And just a little wiggle and a push. And don't pinch too hard. It's easy to do, but then it makes your handle uneven and kind of awkward. So just a little wiggle and a push. Okay, and then I'm going to get this, maybe square it off just a little bit. I'm just pushing in here a little bit, supporting it with my finger. Alrighty. And then here I can see where I've got it attaching down at the bottom here. So I'm going to score that. All right, and there too, a little bit of a wiggle and a push. All right, and not squeezing it too much. A little wiggle and a push. All right, that wiggle is so important because it means that you don't have to push near so much. And then I think make a bottom piece, just kind of scrunching that bottom all up. I like that. Okay, that's looking pretty good to me. So let's see, how does it look? Well, when we look at it from this side, not too bad. I'm just going to straighten everything out. So is it nice and straight? See, not too bad. Okay, so it's looking good that way. Is it looking good this way here? Lining that up. And you want to really get up and look at something from the top, right? That's how you want to see it. So as I look at that from the top, that's looking pretty good. Okay. And then I'm just going to get it a last little bit of smoothing here. So I've got my tool here. I did lubricate it with just a little bit of water. And just catching the edge right there. And that should be enough. Now one thing that I can do is if I do get it too thin, let me show you how I could add a little bit of extra clay to that. I mean, I think that this one would be fine just how it is. But let's say, you pushed in or whatever, right? You could always just take and score around your handle a little bit, right? Score, score, score. Take a little bit of extra clay, roll it to just a little bit of a coil in your hand, just like so, right? Down here on the table. Okay. And then I could wrap that around just to give it a little bit of extra volume if I felt like it had gotten too skinny. Okay, but I'm not going to leave it there. That would just be ridiculous and ugly, right? So what I would do is I would go ahead and shape that in. So I've got my tool here. Shape that in, shape that in. And that's not a bad way of adding just a little bit of extra strength and making a correction if you had pinched that too much, because it's really easy to do. It's really easy when you're putting on to pinch it too much. Okay, but just by adding that little bit of extra, smoothing it off, then that will be okay. I'm going to blend that in all the way. And I'm going to leave my bottom one alone, right? Because actually I feel like I did push that good enough into there that that's going to have a good attachment, and I just don't want to mess with it. Alrighty, and you don't want to watch me messing with things anymore, do you? I don't think you do. So that's good. Just going to smooth out things a little bit. A little bit. Okay. I'm going to add sort of faux that one in a little bit so it looks a little bit like the one on the bottom there. It has the impressions of a seam. Okay, good enough. I'll mess with that later. Okay, on my one that I showed you at the very beginning, it had this little bit of a ridge on it here at the top and at the bottom. And you could do that, or you could not do it. It doesn't matter. This could be done. This could be a blank right here and done. But I'll go ahead and I'll show you how I added that ridge. All it was, a little bit of water on my finger, not much. And maybe this finger here. And just ever so carefully working that around. See that there? And working little by little. That gave me a little bit of a ridge on the bottom, and I could do essentially the same thing on the top. Okay, here we go. I've just found an old piece of ceramics and maybe a roll of tape here, just something to get my hand on so that it's nice and steady, right? So if I hold my finger right here nice and steady, then I can just go ahead and just sort of start pushing that in as I go around. Okay, little by little, little by little. Okay, and so you can see that's added this ridge at the top, and then later on I could even maybe go up a little bit more with it, especially now that this is sort of established. I don't really need that support there anymore, and really start bending it, angling it up, because that's really setting me up for making a rim that's very drinkable. Here, let's get this to be a little bit more even through here. Alrighty, and finally, do not forget this step, is take a look at things, make sure they are straight, make sure that handle is good and straight, looking at it from one direction, right? Okay, a little bit, a little bit. I'll even use this here to make sure. Is that looking good? It's looking okay. And make sure that it is straight this direction here. Okay, even stand up and so that you can really see over it. And then for sure, you might have learned this from the candle holder. There it goes, right? Make sure that you take this out. Do not leave this in. All your work will be for nothing because we're going to have to break this to get it off of here if you leave this on. Do not leave this on. Okay, anyways, so that's good. You know, there's maybe some more messing around that I can do with that. Here, just straighten that out. But that is for another day. That's good. What I would do to put this away is if I've got class the next day, and it's not the middle of summertime, then I'd probably just leave it like this. And that way it can dry just enough, it can firm up just enough overnight that I can work with it. If it is a Friday or if I have classes only, you know, every other day or whatever, then I would probably go ahead and ever so gently take and open up a bag just like so, right? Nice and open. Gently put that in, making sure that I'm not knocking the handle, not pushing it out of round, keeping it nice and round, and just putting it loosely. See, I'm going to leave a little bit of this open. I'm not going to totally close that up. I'm going to put it in my box, and then that should be enough, right? That should retain maybe enough moisture, right, like that, not closing it up tight. That'll be fine. Okay, well that's about it for now, and in the next one maybe we'll do a little bit of drawing and we'll also start the carving on this.